evening, gentlemen. I hope all of you are well. And I'm going to give you a small assessment about the internal security in India. Now, before I go on further, I'd like to give you a bit of an idea that there's a book written by Niraj Chaudhary, The Continent of Circe, in which he says that India is like the continent of Circe. Circe was a very beautiful witch who bewitched anybody, and whoever saw her fell in love with her. But she was a destructive woman, and anybody who came to her island, that is Circe the island, he was converted into a lamp. That's the mythology. As per this writer, India is the continent of Circe, and whoever comes to India is converted into a lamb. In other words, he becomes a very tame person. This is the ethos of the Indian culture, and that is why India never produced global conquerors. We didn't have Alexander or Genghis Khan or Timur Lenk. Nobody came here, or Charlemagne, Saladin. Not here. We had only local warriors, and basically the invaders were the ones who came abroad from Turkmenistan or Iran and other places. So that is one aspect of the thing, that India has been a docile state. Another important point to note is that the Hindu religion believes in destiny, and we have the famous quotation from the Bhagavad Gita where the Lord says that not a leaf moves without my will. When you add up these two things together, it brings up a society that is intellectually very advanced, but when in day-to-day events it falls lags behind. And this continued for hundreds of years, right? I think from the 10th century, when the Mughals and earlier the Delhi Sultanate, the Muslim rulers came, till the 19th century when the British came and took over the country, the Hindus continued to be class 2 citizens. During Muslim rule, they paid the jizya, they didn't have any rights, though a few of their Rajas and Maharajas were given some generalship here and there, but the fact remains that the Hindus were second-class citizens, and one reason for it was the fact that the Hindu art of war was pretty primitive, because they believed only one class of warriors could fight, and that was the Kshatriya, and the others were forbidden to bear arms on pain of death. Now you can well imagine how things were moving in India at that time, because in case there's a battle and the Kshatriyas were defeated, there's no second line of defense. And there is some information I had that the son of Muhammad Ghori, taking 100 horsemen, travelled all the way across North India up to Nadia in Bengal, and there was nobody could oppose him, because once the Kshatriyas had been defeated, the others were not allowed to bear arms. So when you add up all these things, the continent of Circe, then you add this, the military ethos, and then the fatality system in the Hindu society, leads to a very complex situation. And after 47, when Gandhi and Nehru took over, the same thing continued, because it was the ethos of these people to continue with the Hindu culture, and if somebody gives you a slap on one cheek, you give him the second cheek. That is what actually was happening. And no wonder, once India had been divided on religious lines and communal lines into Hindu and Muslim areas, the Hindu areas continued to be secular. Why they should be, beats my imagination. But that was the consensus of Mr. Gandhi and his party. So that has continued, and over the last 74 years, though India got independence, we have been facing vociferous tendencies throughout. That has not been helped by the linguistic states which were created by Jawaharlal Nehru, and this led to a further schism in the Indian society, something based on language. And I must mention here that historically India was never divided on language. All this is now leading to a situation where we have a Maoist revolution, or you can call it insurrection or freedom war, whatever you want to call it, continuing in Chhattisgarh and some areas of Jharkhand as well as Maharashtra. Now these men are very terrible, and in Dantewada, as you know earlier, if I remember some years back, they had killed almost 70 policemen, but nobody's learned a lesson from that. And now they detonated a massive divide on the road, and the police party lost 10 of the soldiers. So what does this point to? It points to that after 75 years of independence, India is not able to control an internal insurrection. It's very well to talk, the Chief Minister said that those who are guilty will not be spared. Fine. This is good for public consumption. But the real fact is that this is not the only place, but there are other portions of parts of India also which are beset by violence. In Uttar Pradesh, there were the mafia ranch, the gangsters. Thankfully, 2 of them have been neutralized now. And then in Punjab, we had the Khalistan movement, and it's still trying to breathe and come back again because the Indian government has been weak in its response. Even the Indian government is weak in its response to the Nakshal and Maoist offensive in Chhattisgarh. Now in Kashmir also, despite all talk by the government, the terrorism hasn't died down. And we are beset by terrorism. We lost 5 of our soldiers just a few days back when they were attacked by terrorists. And now the situation is pretty grim. But the point is that India is a very big giant. It's like Gulliver. You know, Gulliver was tied down by small Lilliputians and he couldn't move. And this is what is the analogy I have for India. We need a man who can break out of the ancient theories, that everything is ordained by fate and we must follow whatever God has given us and we should be happy with what we have. All that is okay to read, but it's not practical, and that is the reason we are not taken seriously in the world anyway. Despite all the talk I'm reading about some of the magazines saying India, India is a big power, and India, practically India is nothing. Practically. Recently, I have the sad news that in Qatar, 6 ex-Indian naval persons who were working in a private company were arrested for espionage. I mean, how the hell they could do that? They did it with impunity because they knew India is a big giant, like Gulliver, right down. Would they ever arrest any Chinese like that? Is a question which I ask. Look at the OIC. Routinely it condemned India for atrocities in Kashmir. What is atrocities? It doesn't say a word about what the Chinese are doing in Xinjiang, where they have put 200,000 Uyghur Muslims in correction camps, and many of their women who have been left alone have been married by the Han Chinese and they're having children, and it's a different issue altogether. So, gentlemen, what I'm trying to make out is that Indians have to change their culture. They have to change their thinking, the way of thinking. The warfare of the Hindus was pretty poor, to be very frank. As I told you, the Hindus are a generic term for people of the subcontinent, and includes Muslims also. And even when the Muslims came to India, they were infected with the same ideology which had been continuing, that is the continent of Circe, and they came under the spell of the local people, and they also never ventured out of India. They were content to remain in India, keep fighting here. Somebody made a stage in Awadh, somebody made a stage in Hyderabad, and they continued here only. Now the question is, after 1947, the stakes are different. And I would like to bring to your notice the fact that India is the largest country in the world population-wise, but doesn't have the same clout. Because We can't win a single medal in Olympics, and when we win one medal, we start saying it's a great deal. China wins 400. And now all we have got is more population. Our income levels are low, one-fifth of China, and 51% of our women are anemic. These are Government of India figures, not my figures. And about 30% of the Indian children are having a stunted growth. So if such for lack of protein. So if this is what India has achieved after 75 years, I'm not surprised that people outside are going to listen to you. Now China carried out a coup d'etat, I would say, a political coup d'etat when it got out a detente, the peace done between Iran and Saudi Arabia. What about India? Could India have done it? Would they have listened to India? You give me the answer, I'll not give it. So the press and few of the channels which keep on singing praises that now India is teaching a lesson to so and so, India is doing this. I think the problem is that India has not realized its potential. Our leadership at the moment is completely haywire. It doesn't know what is geopolitical power. And Mao Zedong's famous quote, political power comes out of the barrel of a gun, doesn't register with the Indian mind. We chose the Westminster system of government, which is unsuited to India. There's never a democracy. I haven't heard of India being a democracy like the Greek or the Roman democracies. India was an autocrat where the king was equated to God. And when India opted for democracy, you know what's happened? India hasn't progressed the way it should have. And if I talk about the hunger index, I think India is way down, and that is where it matters. And naturally, talking of the armed forces, India is the largest importer of arms in the world. And I've yet to read anywhere that the country became a global power after importing arms. I'd like to be corrected on this. So India is something hollow. One feels a little sad when you talk about all this, because the roots of all this change can be traced to Pandit Nehru. Narendra Modi came to power in 2014 and he's trying his best. I'll give him credit for it. He's changed a lot of thinking which was moribund in Indian political thought, and a number of times he has reacted very well. But the history of the last 75 years shows that India always reacted. There was no proactive action. Look at how we lost Tibet. Look at how we lost Aksai Chin. Look at how we just kept quiet when the Chinese were intruding in Indian territory and doing the salami slicing. When Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, the Defence Minister at that time made a statement that China is a very powerful country and we can oppose it. I mean, somebody goes around making such statements. What can you expect? India also treated the Muslim world with deference, with respect, and they don't respect India comparatively. But there is change coming, and I'll be the first man to say it. Under Narendra Modi, things have changed. There is no doubt about it, despite all that Kharge and his brood can keep talking that he's a poisonous snake and all that. It's so putrid that somebody who's talked like this. The fact remains that Narendra Modi has been trying to give a new face to India. And if we support him, the continent of Circe and the sayings that everything is ordained by God will be a thing of the past when India moves forward. Let's hope, gentlemen, that he continues in power and his successor follows his policy. In the meanwhile, all I can say is that the opposition, instead of being destructive, needs to be constructive. And that goes mainly to the Aam Aadmi Party, which is definitely one of the most corrupt parties you can have anywhere. And how they fooled the public in Delhi, I don't know. And then we have the Congress, which during the days of Manmohan Singh had personified corruption. We had the Sardar as the Prime Minister, and he was just sitting over the top when crores and billions of dollars of money were being filtered away, salted away, and he did nothing. At least now action is taking place. I mentioned about the gangland wars in Uttar Pradesh. They are changing, and two of the wanted criminals have been eliminated. Kashmir also is on the agenda, and I think the time has come when there is a demographic change in Kashmir and people from other parts of India are allowed to go there and settle there, and that will be the end of Kashmiri insurrection. I close now, gentlemen. I hope you like my thoughts. Think over it very carefully, and I'll say, Jai Hind, glory to India. God bless you all. Do subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, and come back for more. Bye bye. God bless.